Today we have Yvonne Radley from Big Me Up Media. So Yvonne is a specialist in getting into publications and boosting your PR for your fitness business. So she's going to be dropping some knowledge bombs this evening. So take it away, Yvonne.
Hello everyone.
Your line is now muted.
It's Big Me Up Media. I'm going to get straight into it. I'm not one to mess around. I've always got deadlines to meet, so normally I like to get in there and get on with it. So tonight we're going to be looking at newspapers. First of all, thank you very much for joining us tonight and giving up your time on this windy night. It's very windy here. I'm hoping that the line stays secure and I can talk to you for the full amount of time. You might hear the wind now and then crashing at the back door. I'm not going to pitch tonight, you'll be pleased to know. I hate going on webinars and you get pitched to, it's awful. So I'm just going to drop you some knowledge bombs, as Josh says, and I am going to tell you about my free 30-day media challenge, which you can pop onto if you want to, but it's completely free, and loads of people in January, and they're just starting to get publicity now, so it's very exciting, and it's very helpful, but I'll tell you more about that later. I'm going to tell you how to write for your local newspaper. A little bit about me, don't worry, I'm not going to go on for like 5, it's literally 1 page. So I used to be a journalist for over 20 years, which is why I feel that I have the knowledge to give you guys. I've worked for basically everyone. It's easier to say who I haven't worked for. I've worked for the likes of The Sun, who were great fun to work with, the BBC, Daily Mail, The Mirror, all of the nationals, also the women's magazine market, so Woman, Bella, Chat, all of those, the ones that you find in the supermarket where, it's my wife's got 7 cousins and they all had triplets on Christmas Day, that kind of thing. I've done some work for ITV, also Sky, Classic FM, and when I was finally made redundant after 20 odd years as a journalist, I was the editor for Capital FM in the East Midlands. Now, at the time, I was dating a hunky personal trainer at my boot camp. And it just coincided that we were going out together. I was made redundant. I had a house in Nottingham, but we were both living in Leicester at the time. And we just thought, you know what, let's do a boot camp of our own. So I did the business side and the marketing, and he took the classes. And after about 9 months, we only had enough money to last for 3 months, and I made it work. I think when your back's against the wall, you just make it work. So I used all the tricks that I knew to get publicity out there and get people in for free, basically. So it didn't cost any money. And Action Bootcamp was born and was a huge success and still is today. We're just entering our 4th year. And then I realised after going to a few networking events like BEB and Paul Mort's events as well, especially the one in Manchester a couple of years ago, and FitPro started asking me, how they could do the same. And because I was meeting these guys and running my own boot camp, I'm going to set up another company, Big Me Up Media, and teach other FitPros how to do what I've done with our boot camp. Because I know it all. So what is the point of it all being in my head when I can share it with you guys? And then you can earn a living and a good living as well and get all those things that you want to get. So Big Me Up Media was born in September 2012. I have the press club, which is a done-for-you press release, one-to-one coaching, which is very bespoke. I only have 25 people in there at one time. And I do business coaching, which incorporates media, because quite often when you're talking about media campaigns, sometimes it does revolve, a lot of the time it revolves around what you're doing in your business. And so I do business coaching now, but I only ever take on 6 clients with that one. So that's what I do. Tonight I'm going to show you, you're going to learn about the deadlines and how to contact the press. You're going to discover the correct format that your press release should be written in, because this is where a lot of FitPros and the general public go wrong. They just don't know how a press release should be written and they just get it all wrong, so they never get printed. You're also going to find out which style you should write in, learn who to contact at the newspaper to get published, because you do not want the ad client, who is usually who ends up ringing you. You're going to find out how to deliver your press release, how to follow up a story, find out how you can become the paper's expert. Loads of my clients now have regular health columns in their local paper and online magazines. Also, you're going to discover how to write for the audience of your publication. Now, before I go any further, can I just check that you can still hear me so I don't go and talk for another 45 minutes. Can you hear me, Josh? Hello, Josh. Can you still hear me?
Your line is now unmuted.
Oh, there.
All good. We can hear you.
Josh? Sorry, I didn't want to go on if anything had happened. Okay, moving on. So, big me up tip.
Your line is now muted.
Josh is probably eating his tea then. For newspapers, you always want to write in the third person. So, for example, he said, she said. You never really write in the first person, as in, you know, but like with your blogs, you probably say, I did. So always write in the third person when you're writing articles. Don't use complicated language. Basically, the reader, this is astonishing, but it's true even from when I trained as a journalist. The aim at a reader, in fact, it's probably gone down. I think it is about 9 now. But if you aim at a 12-year-old and don't use really big words, then that's fine. Also, don't use abbreviations, especially words that fit pros tend to use. So things like BMI, CHD, the general public won't know what the hell you're about. They might know BMI, they will know the context that it's used in, but they won't necessarily know what it means. Now, if you are writing an article, say, for a fitness magazine that does use this kind of language, so it is more specific, then always write it out in full the first time you use it. So body mass index, and then after that you can write it out, and then in brackets put BMI, and then after that you can refer to it just as BMI. So don't use what we kind of call journalese. You know, it's like language that's just for your interests and your niche area. Avoid repetition at all costs. So when you write something out, like a press release, the best way to find out if you've repeated yourself is to read it out loud. And if you work in radio and you go in the newsroom, it's quite weird because you'll have journalists sitting there and they will be reading out loud to themselves. It's the kind of thing normally you do, but if you do it, you will notice repetition. And it is amazing how much repetition you do put in an article. Even journalists do it. And even if you pick up a tabloid tomorrow, you might spot a few. But to look professional, and to have more chance of getting published, it's good to knock these habits out straight away. So avoid repetition. If you get writer's block, just write down the basic facts. Don't worry about what you need to say first or even what the story is. Just start writing. When you find that you start writing, the words will flow and more will come, and then you can just go back and edit it later. Tip number 2, always include ages, and they should be written in brackets. So, for example, said Katie Bulmer Cook, and then you'd normally have a colon actually, so that's 2 dots, and then brackets 24. If you don't include the ages, you basically give the reporter more weight. They have to find out how old you are, and that means that they're going to have to phone you. And if they're up against a deadline and they cannot get hold of you, they will dump you and go to a source, a regular source that they know is always at the end of the phone, basically, and they'll use them instead. So do not miss out the ages. It could affect you getting published. Picking up tip number 3, include the name of your town in the top paragraph to make the story relevant and very local. This is a neat little trick. You don't have to do it every time, but when editors and news editors are looking for stories, they are looking for the relevance to their listener, and by sticking the name of your the town in the top paragraph makes it very relevant. So they immediately want it because it's a local story. You should also make the top paragraph sexy and interesting, and what I mean by that is something that grabs the reader's attention. Don't worry about grabbing the journalist's attention or the editor's attention. You have got to grab the reader's attention and get them to read paragraph 2. That's all paragraph 1 is there for. However, it should story in 1 paragraph. And we call this, when you're training to be a reporter, it's waiting for a bus scenario. Fit pros call it the elevator pitch. So imagine something happened and you're standing at a bus stop and the bus is coming down the road, but you suddenly spot your best friend across the road and you shout over to them, hey Johnny, you'll never guess what? And then you tell the story literally as the bus is pulling up. So it's very succinct and very sharp. Now paragraph 2 is giving a bit more detail. So this is really when you get into the, who's involved, where, when, why, what, why it's important. But you still want to be giving them little nuggets, still enticing them to read paragraph 3, because paragraph 2's job really is just to get them to read further down. So big note tip number 5, third paragraph or third par as it's called, you need to hit the emotional button here. And you see it done all the time in the newspapers and on news bulletins as well. You probably remember, well, depends how old you are, I'm very old, but there used to be a programme called Drop the Dead Donkey, which was brilliant, and it was all based in a newsroom. And there was always this one reporter who would do anything to get a story. And when he was abroad, reporting on tragic like earthquakes or floods or anything, he would usually find a child with a teddy bear with the button missing eye, that kind of thing, and planting the teddy bear at scenes. So this third part is where you've got to hit that emotional, get through to the reader. So you need to start to stress why this story is important to the reader and the people involved. So maybe something is under threat, like your local leisure centre or a park where children like to, go and have fun, basically playing outdoors. Maybe there is a lot of money involved. Money is a really good trigger. So why should people care? And the quote can be from you, if you are the health professional in the town and you are really upset by this, and say why, children not being allowed to play in the park is a bad thing. Kind of highlight why people should care. You may interview or get somebody else involved in the story. So one of the mums who comes to your classes, for example, might be involved. She might be leading a campaign, and you could quote her. If you quote her, you do need to quote her exactly, and of course have her permission. So paragraph 4, we are going to start getting some quotes in here. So you can, like I say, use quotes from your clients. You have to have their permission. And you must say exactly what they say and put in speech marks like these, so with the 2 speech marks either side. And quotation marks, so on the outside of everything, like wrapping your quote in a blanket, so the full stop is on the inside. A lot of people worry about grammar. I mean, don't worry too much about it. I'm just telling you because I'm here, and, journalists do look out for it. Nowadays, with spell check and everything, it's not as vital as it used to be. So don't worry about if you're writing not brilliant. The main thing is the content. Okay, on the 5th paragraph, you want to be giving facts and figures. It's kind of the boring stuff, but it's still stuff that you need to get across. I mean, this can be things like how many sites you've got, how many clients, how long you've been in the industry. If you're holding an event, it could be the date, the time, the place, the number of people expected. If it's something to do with a charity, you could involve some stats about the charity. Maybe there's celebrities involved. It could be obesity stats for your town. So any kind of interesting factors. And paragraph 6 should be your final one. Don't make your press release any longer than this. Otherwise, it's deleted. They haven't got time to read reams of stuff. Especially if you start giving them your history. They hate that. Definitely do not save the best till last. Journalists literally scream the roof down when people do this. Most journalists, especially when they're first starting out, will only read paragraph 1. When they're more experienced, they have learnt by this time to read paragraph 1 and paragraph 6 because they know that that's where people tend to leave the gold dust. If nothing interests them, basically they're out of there with paragraph 1. So make paragraph 6 an invite to them, or something that just rounds up the story. But basically, I think I'm probably jumping ahead here, but editors cut from the bottom up. So you want all your vital information at the top of the story, because like this week, they've had storms. So loads of normal stories will be thrown out to get pictures in of the storms. When the way they throw a story out, they don't just chuck a whole story out, they just cut all the stories from the bottom up. So always get the important stuff at the top. Just going back on that for a second, quite often when you first start writing, you can't help yourself, you will put the best bit at the bottom. So all you do there is take that bottom paragraph and make that your intro. Quite often it does turn out to be a really good paragraph. Tip number 9, editor's notes. This is a really useful tool, and it's one that the general public wouldn't know about really. So editor's notes is what you put underneath your press release. I mean, you could be really official and put ends, E-N-D-S, at the bottom of your press release. So the journalist knows that's the story where it ends. And then you literally write editor's notes. And so this is where you put all the boring details that you don't want cluttering up the story. So you can include facts and figures about your business, definitely a contact number, and you must tell them that you are willing to be interviewed. So I put, Rob Brown is available for interview. Give a landline and a mobile number. Often they prefer to speak to you on a landline, especially if it's, I know we're talking about newspapers here, but if you do radio, they do prefer to record you on a landline. And also offer to provide pictures. Don't ever send photographs with your press release. Just offer to provide. So you literally say, John Smith is available for photographs, or a photographer is invited if it's an event or photo call, okay? So don't send attachments, basically, so you don't want to send any photographs. Include your website address and make sure it's up to date. There's nothing worse than a journalist checking you out, and they will check you to see that you are who you say you are, but also to see what kind of things you do and who you are in the community, because if you are positioning yourself as the health and fitness expert, they don't just want some random guy who's got 5 clients. They want somebody who is involved in the community and runs lots of classes and knows what he's talking about. So they'll check your blog, they'll check your Google rankings to see where you are on Google. Also, if possible, have something on your homepage relating to the story you are pitching. So if it is about, a campaign to keep the park open because you think it's really important and the obesity stats for children are really high, then have something on your page that reflects that, even if it's just a link through to another page. So pick me up tip number 10. After you've written your press release, leave it for 24 hours and then go back and reread it to see if it all makes sense. Trust me, it won't make sense. Even journalists do this. You write something one afternoon and then you go back the next morning and you think, well, what was I on yesterday? It's always best to read it after 24 hours. Do any revisions and then send it over. Now, just as I was saying that you don't put pictures in as an attachment, you want to send your press release via email in the body of the email, not as an attachment, because basically that blocks up their in tray. Journalists get hundreds of press releases every day. Now, if you can, send it to a named person, and the top 2 candidates are, number 1, the news editor. Do not bother with editor, because he doesn't deal with stories. He deals with the news editor who tells him or she tells him stories are. So don't go to the editor, go to the news editor, because he's the one that gives the stories out to all the reporters. Or, sneakily, you could go for the junior reporter. Now, the junior reporter is looking to contact list. Just like as Fit Pros, you're looking to build your client base. They're looking for a local politician, they're looking for a local counsellor, a local teacher to comment on education, and be looking for a local health and fitness expert as well. So you can get on their list as the local expert. And then it's a very transient industry, and as journalists move on, they will take you with them. So if your journalist starts in your local paper, in a few years' time, they could be working with Sky, and it's all about making contacts, and you could, you will still be their contact, and you could go with them. Now, you can get their email addresses by checking the website on the Contact Us section, which is usually right at the bottom, or by phoning reception, that good old piece of equipment, and just pick it up and ask for it. you want the name. First of all, I would ring and say, oh, can I have the name of your news editor, please? And then I would just take the name, and then I would ring back a few hours later or the next day and ask for the email of John Smith or whoever it may be. Okay, big tip number 11. To contact you can contact the local paper and offer to be their health contact. Like I was just explaining about the junior reporter, she will have a list, and in the newsroom they do have a list that, you know, the journalists all share the same list, and so they're going to have local politicians on, you know, somebody from each party, because they have to do a balanced story. And the list is full of all different kinds of experts. They'll have a travel expert, a terrorism expert, a pathologist, any kind of industry you can think of, they'll have an expert for it, okay? Just going to have a sip of coffee, bear with me. Now, if there is a national story, for example, last year it was brilliant stuff. Yeah, we had the horse meat scandal, which was fantastic. Obesity is always in the headlines. We love a good obesity story. Anything to do with childhood obesity is really good. Last week we had the whole fat versus sugar debate. So all the time, you know, health stories are hitting the national. The local paper are dying for a local angle. For anyone who's on the call that came to my Big Me Up live event last year, you'll know that Lee Burton from the local radio station in Wolverhampton came down, and he was telling the story about the horse meat scandal, and you would expect, wouldn't you, with such a massive story that they were inundated with people wanting to get their opinion across. Well, they weren't. They had one person ring in, and it was a local organic farm shop, and they just rang in to say, oh, you know, this horse meat scandal is doing our business, because everyone stopped going to the supermarket to buy their meat, lasagna and everything, and they're coming to us because they know that it's organic and that it's healthy. And that was the only person to ring a massive Wolverhampton station. So if you are a Fit Pro, pick up that phone. They don't know that you're out there, and oh my God, they would love you, and you'll go on their list as a, you know, a health expert. So newsrooms, they do have a laugh. I mean, they're ruthless. They've got the same sense of humour as firemen and policemen. So you will be known as rent-a-quotes, but, you know, who cares, as long as it gets you in the paper and not your competition. You want to contact them really every 3 to 4 weeks. Any more, and there's a chance you might get blacklisted and become a pain. Any less, and you won't stay at the top of their mind. So every 3 weeks really is perfect, because they'll get to know you, and they'll be like, oh, such and such has, you know, contacted us again, still banging on about the park, you know. So that's the kind of thing that they'll do. If there are industry exhibitions, so if you go into IFS, for example, or the Fit Pro convention, or any kind of shows, you know, maybe you're into muscle building and you go to those kind of shows. So whatever your industry, your niche is, if you're going anyway, offer to write about the event for your paper, because they're very short staffed nowadays and just do not have the staff to go to these things, and quite often they will take your staff. So picking up tip number 12, follow up your press release with a phone call if you don't appear in the next edition. So if it's a daily paper, I would give it a couple of days. And then if you don't hear anything, phone up. But be happy when you phone. Don't give them a hard time, because, again, you could end up blacklisted. And just say something like, oh, hi, I sent you a press release a couple of days ago. I was wondering if you'd had a chance to look at it. That's all you have to say. You don't even have to say, oh, you're going to use it. Just say, I was wondering if you had had the chance to look at it. And then offer to send it over to them again. They're really busy. Sometimes you will go on a pile, like a to-do list. You know what your to-do list is like, you know. And then, like this week, all the floods and the storms have come in, and that to-do list, honestly, there will be stuff in there that they were going to do, but it's just got thrown by the wayside. But if you were to ring in and just remind them, they might go, oh yeah, I remember seeing that, and they'll pull it out. Or if you say, oh, well, I've got it right here, do you want me to send it so it's at the top of your email? They will say, oh yeah, please, you know, fire it over and we'll stick it in. Now, if you are sending to a weekly paper, obviously wait for the paper to come out, which is probably going to be a few days. and then give them a ring, but make sure you give them time. Now, the best day to send articles in to your weekly paper is a Tuesday afternoon, because most of them are printed on a Wednesday. You'll know this in your area. It might be different, but most are printed on a Wednesday. They have a Friday's date, but they always get on the streets on a Thursday. So on a Wednesday, when it's going to print, it's called going to bed. They can't leave until the paper's finished. And quite often there's holes in it because things have been pulled and advertisers pull out at the last minute, and it's all drama. And sometimes, it's stuck there till 10 o'clock at night because the paper's still not finished, but it has to go to print. So if you send them a health and fitness story, they're usually quite generic, quite featurey, it's not hard news, and they can slot that in pretty much on any page. So it could be very timely, because on a Wednesday when they're scrapping around for stories, they'll be like, oh, let's stick this health and fitness article in. That will fill a gap. Literally, that's what it will be like. If you send it in on, say, a Friday, they've still got days until print, so they'll probably delete you, or it's called spiking you. They'll spike you and kind of put you to one side because you're not important at that time. But yeah, Tuesday afternoons, really good. That's your highest chance of getting in. So finally, to recap, get your elevator speech for your intro, get quotes in there for social proof, add some emotion, and give some interesting facts and figures. Don't make them boring, make them quite interesting facts and figures. Include your contact details, and whatever you do, don't go on holiday as soon as you've given them. And if you know that you're not going to be around, get your PA to do it, or somebody else in your studio, or your partner. Make yourself available for interview and for photographs. So just to recap on what you've learnt then. You've learnt about the deadlines and how to contact the press, discovered the correct format your press release should be written in, found out which style you should write in. It's called pyramid style, by the way. Remember I was telling you they chop from the bottom up. So the most important is at the top. So it's pyramid style. And you've learnt who to contact at the newspaper to get published. So that is your news editor or your junior reporter. You've found out how to deliver your press release, i.e. in the body of the email, not as an attachment where you're liable to get deleted because you filled up their in tray. And you've learnt how to follow up a story. You found out how to become the paper's expert and discover how to write for the audience of your publication. So remember I was saying about, don't use overcomplicated language, aim it at a 12-year-old. Talk about issues that are important to them. So get on my 30-day challenge. It's free. You can download my professional press release template and guide, which is very useful. Even if you just use that, it's worth it. Learn how to write a press release step by step. So I literally guide you through the 6 paragraphs. We do a paragraph at a time, and we have a whole section on the headline and subject lines. You can find out how to take leads from Pinterest to your website. Learn how to get in with the journalists. Find out how to get your branding across all platforms. I've put the link to it here, but I'll pop it on my Facebook page as well. So if you search for me on Facebook, Yvonne Radley, I'll pop it at the top, but it's https://eatonradley.leadpages.net/ and then it's 30-day-challenge/. So like I said, I will put this lead on my Facebook page too, but it's 30 days. You can just save the emails up and do it in your own time, or there's a task a day and the tasks are quite small. But it does mean that you will be ready for any scrutiny by journalists. You will look really professional by the time they go to look at you. So thank you for listening. I hope you've picked up some useful tips. You can check out my website, which is yvonneradleymedia.com, and I'm going to answer any questions you may have now. So hopefully Josh is still there, and hopefully you lot are still there. I'm just coming back.
Your line is now unmuted.
I am still here, yeah. Good times. Right, guys, so any questions
I'm just trying
to
close this now.
No worries. Any questions you have, just write them down on the chat bar, and then Yvonne will go through and kind of answer them as she can. Good times.
Your line is now muted.
Screen sharing now, can't I? Will I see the questions in the side? Can you tell I'm a complete technophobe?
Your line is now unmuted.
Yeah, you'll see them down the left-hand side.
Yeah, they're all being shy. I mean, if you want to tell me about any story ideas you have, because this is where a lot of fit pros go wrong. They talk about their classes, which it's not really a story. So if any of you have got any story ideas, if you want to put them past me, I'll say whether they're a goer or not.
Okay, I've got one actually, a personal training one. I've been doing rehab with an 86-year-old woman. She was left completely bedridden.
Wow.
By the NHS. So basically they did all these operations on her and everything, and she was left completely bedridden. She stayed in bed for 3 months, and I got her up and walking in 15 sessions, which is 2 a week.
Wow.
So I didn't know if that was something I could work with, essentially.
Definitely. So now she's mobile again.
Yeah.
Is she planning is she able to do like a sponsored walk or anything like that? You told me she's going to climb Kilimanjaro. That's a brilliant story.
Yeah, I could lie about it, but I don't think she will. One of the things she was going to do, her main target was so that she could go out for dinner on Valentine's Day with her husband. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's amazing. Yeah, that's a really good Valentine's story. Your local press would love that, because they'll go and get a picture of them both, and they'll probably get a picture of you as well, you and her. Yeah. It's a really good feature story. So yeah, you do a press release on that, Josh.
Awesome.
Send it over to me when you've done it, and I'll look it over for you.
Yeah, I will do. Awesome. The other thing I was thinking...
You've been married quite a long time.
Yeah, since I think about 60 years, I think. It's crazy.
Is it her diamond anniversary this year? That would add some more to the story.
I'm not too sure. I'm seeing her tomorrow, so I'll ask.
Yeah, find out. Obviously, you'll need her permission to do the story, but see what she says. It's a good story. Great Valentine's story. I could get picked up by the Nationals. Sky would love that.
Awesome. Hook me up.
Quite often you can get, I will do. If you a story in your local paper, this is on a Friday. I used to work for it's called a press agency, and so we would scout all the local newspapers and look for stories that could go national, and then we sell them to the Nationals. That's what we used to do. So if it gets in your local paper, it could easily get picked up by the Nationals and by people like Sky.
Awesome. Sounds good. The other one I was thinking about was potentially for either fitness industry magazines or maybe the local.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about kind of repeated toolbox, saying about how we're offering kind of new opportunities for personal trainers, and then locally about offering like job opportunities, self-employed, young business, kind of going with that vibe because of the recession, obviously.
Yeah, if you're going for the local, the FitPro magazine, you've got to give really their readers, always have the reader in mind. So their readers are young PTs who need a helping hand. So do an article that gives them a lot of free information. So, your top tips or from your experts, you've got loads of experts on PT Toolbox, but make the article full of information that will help them, and that will get you printed more than an article about PT Toolbox.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So you're kind of channeling through the magazine directly to the reader.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like a plan.
PT Toolbox, helping young PTs to get more work is a very good. It really suits radio, actually. Anything to do with employment is good. Anything to do with employment of young people, especially when the figures are due to come out. So you can check with the National Office of Statistics when the employment figures are out, and they're kind of quarterly. They just came out recently, actually, because employment had gone down, I think it was. So it'll be a little while, and quite often the radio like to have interviews in the bag ahead of it happens. So you could pitch it to the local radio and say, this is a great story of young people being employed in health and fitness.
Yeah.
You know, would you like the story ahead of the next employment figures coming out?
Awesome. Love it.
That's your best bet on that one.
Okay, awesome. Good times. Evo.
Being shy, look.
Evo, have you got any questions?
Yes.
Where is Evo? Hello.
No. he's based in London. It is a hard nut to crack in London. I feel for you, Evo, because it's very difficult because your local newspapers, local radio are the nationals. So, Evo, I would try and go for LBC. Yes, it is. Go for LBC. And actually, they've just upped their game and they're doing even more talk. Commercial radio, normally, I'm going to confuse you here, but normally commercial radio they have a different license to the BBC. So if you want to get on and you live out in the sticks, target your BBC local radio because they have to talk for like 45 minutes and probably play music for 15. You've noticed it if you've listened in, you know, there's a lot of boring presenters and boring articles and guests on there. So they would love to have you in. And quite often when they have you in for an hour. However, in London, it's slightly different. And LBC is, you have an Eastern European accent. I don't think that matters nowadays in radio. Web clients may talk more. Yes, talk to me, Evo. Local accents don't really matter. As long as people can understand what you say, then you'll be fine. Radio, if you're worried about your accent, then go for the press. And for everybody, really, online magazines are exploding and they're everywhere. So that's a really good chance to get in. I mean, as well as your local papers, but for you, Evo, in London, it's very difficult because you've got, you know, the Evening Standard, which is like a national newspaper. So check out online and Google the area of London that you're in and put in online magazines, start submitting articles to them. And also their readership is growing. There's a great online magazine actually called shortlist.com and that targets 500,000 men. Quite a lot of my clients have been in that one. So check it out. Any more questions? Evan says he's going to check it out. Good.
Good man.
Always, when you're thinking about stories, like a lot of fit pros, they do tend to think that their classes are, you know, news. They're not. Nobody's bothered about your news number class or anything like that. So never do a story like that because you'll just discredit yourself. So try and tap into things that are happening and always think ahead. So like for you, Josh, with Valentine's story, because it's such a good Valentine's story, I would send that in. They probably have got a lot of Valentine's stories ready. Really now you want to be thinking about March stories. So Sports Relief is coming up. Again, it's just BBC, so don't go for your commercial radio on that one. But local papers, online magazines, especially if you're doing anything with children. I mean, children and obesity always works. Anything to do with sport and getting kids fit is great for publicity. Anything to do with charity is great for publicity. So always think ahead to the next month, okay? So try and think March now. You've got Mother's Day coming up. You can do top 10 tips for getting fit, that kind of thing. I love that.
That's a good one. I'm going to steal that one. So I've got
the Easter recipes as well. You've got Easter on the way.
Ooh, I like it. I'm just going to quickly write that one down. Good times. Right, so if we wrap it up there, and then what we'll do is I'll put this one on this video on YouTube, and then I'll send you the link. Good times. But thank you for everything you've.
Awesome.
Thanks for the tips you've given us. No worries. And then what I'll do is I'll drop you an email and see if we can do something on a regular basis and kind of, you know, sort something out.
That'd be cool. And if anyone thinks of questions afterwards, just Facebook me and I'll answer.
Perfect. Good times. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
See you later, guys. Have a good evening.
See you later, everyone. Bye.